Good afternoon, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78, the corruption detector. Today is Sunday, December 9th, and I have that special report on the new MKUltra documents that have been released. For those who do not know, MKUltra was one of many CIA, Central Intelligence Agency, mind control experiment programs that existed. And this is the one that people know about the most because in the 1970s, the information was widely released. It kind of got the whistle blown on it. And there was hearings in Congress regarding the program and the many sub-programs within it. And people were aghast. Now, fast forward 50 years later, and you've got a lot of people who, may not remember it, or who had just, never heard about it, and then it was shuffled under the rug. And now, many years later, it's coming back out because there is an amazing website called the Black Vault. And the Black Vault is a repository for previously classified documents. There's also forums, and there's lots of interesting things to look at here. So if you've never been there, I highly recommend going and checking out theblackvault.com. All of the documents included in today's report from this Sun article are from theblackvault.com. This right here is specifically the entire portion of the website that's about CIA, MKUltra, and mind control. We're going to be looking at some specific documents. Many of them are in poor condition, so bear with me. It may take me a moment to decipher them as I'm reading through because they're all kind of faded and they weren't kept in the best shape. Or maybe they just weren't delivered in the best shape on purpose. So, theblackvault.com, it's a great website. Go check it out. There is all kinds of formerly classified information on all manner of subjects. Very, very interesting place to go if you want to do some investigating. But the article from The Sun is entitled Spy Secrets: Truth About CIA's Illegal MKUltra Mind Control Experiments Using Drugs, Hypnosis, and Electronic Devices Revealed in Sensational New Documents Officials Hid for Decades. Go ahead and go down here. Disturbing details of secret mind control experiments carried out by the CIA have been revealed in newly released documents that officials have been trying to hide for decades. The new documents, released under the Freedom of Information Act, reveal how the CIA experimented on both humans and animals using drugs, hypnosis, and electronic devices as part of the top secret and highly illegal mind control project MKUltra. Shockingly, the swaths of information still missing or redacted in the records could mean the CIA is still carrying out the experiments to this day, according to experts. One document details how the CIA planned to drug criminals awaiting trial held in a prison hospital ward in a bid to develop improved techniques in drug interrogation. Another document details the CIA's interest in developing ways to cause amnesia in humans using experiments, no matter how weird, inconclusive, or unusual. It goes on to detail how they were looking to find ways of developing hypnotic speaking techniques which would control the minds of large audiences and heighten group susceptibility. Experiments which were too dangerous, too shocking, too unusual for routine testing would be of interest to us, the memo from 1956 reads. Here is a memo here. Project title codename Drug Interrogation Techniques. Development of improved techniques for drug interrogation of criminals. Methods of, I can't quite read that there, inhibition, maybe reduced inhibition while under drug interrogation will be explored. The records also detail which mind control experiments on dogs, cats, and mice with a cocktail of drugs and by implanting electronic devices, most likely as a precursor to human experiments. They also researched electric fish who can zap each other with electricity in a bit to create a super soldier that could do the same thing. The records were obtained by researcher John Greenwald Jr., who published them last week on his website, The Black Vault. John, 37, from Castaic, California, told Sun Online he has been fighting since 1999 to get the CIA to hand over the documents and says they completely rewrite the history of the controversial project. Here's John right here. John said, "Are the CIA still trying to cover up projects that took place in the 50s and 60s? In my opinion, yes. They are trying to cover it up, and that is evidenced not just by what I went through to get the documents, but the documents themselves. So you'll see through these records they were doing a lot of different types of research with drugs on cats and dogs and other animals. They were implanting electronic devices into animals to see whether electronic impulses can essentially control the brain." Subject: interrogation techniques. This headquarters is interested in collecting, on a continuing basis, the following types of information on interrogation or interview techniques used by security police organizations, police departments, courtrooms, and intelligence services throughout the world, with emphasis on redacted methods. A. General interrogation. Routine interrogation methods, both formal and informal, utilizing non-technical procedures to obtain the desired information. B. Technical aids to interrogation. 1. Physical. Various methods of physical persuasion utilized to elicit information from an uncooperative individual. 2. Psychological. Threats, inferences, promises, and extended procedures utilized in special interrogation approaches, softening up processes, and inducements. 3. Mechanical. Various drugs, such as the so-called truth serums, utilized to break down inhibitions and resistances and to produce short or prolonged control of influence over the subject. Also mechanical techniques, such as a form of medical duress to produce pain or discomfort to the subject. Headquarters is keenly interested in securing all available information concerning this subject, and you are instructed to take all possible action to fulfill these requirements without interfering with other priority assignments of your... and it goes on. If you control and master the type of technology with cats and dogs, you're very close to doing that with humans. And so this is a kind of very interesting look into the beginning days of that research. There's also one document that specifically breaks down multiple project proposals, but the majority of project names in the document are redacted. That means that whatever these projects were, they won't even tell you the name of the project, let alone what they were doing. It shows that the entire story is not out yet, which is contrary to what the CIA wants us to believe. MKUltra was the code name for a top-secret and illegal program of human experiments which the CIA carried out in the early 50s until it was officially halted in 1973. The aim of the project was to identify and develop mind-control drugs and procedures to be used in interrogations and torture in a bid to force confessions and control behavior. Although the CIA admitted to running the covert operation during congressional hearings in the 70s, they claimed that all records relating to it had been destroyed. John's battle for information started in 1999, when he was requested that the only documents relating to MKUltra and the CIA said had not been destroyed, 30,000 pages of financial records. The CIA finally provided John with the 30,000 pages on CD-ROM in 2004, which they claimed were a full and complete set of records related to the project. Here's the electric eels and electric fish. The principal representatives of freshwater electric fishes. Arrow indicates direction of current in the electric organs. It wasn't until 2016 that a fellow researcher realized a staggering 4,358 pages, which the CIA claimed were on the CD, were actually missing, and John began his fight to have the missing records released. Although the CIA initially claimed John was wrong and fought him hard, he finally received 2 separate boxes of records in the past month. But most worrying, John says, is that there is still at least 1,245 pages missing, which could contain even more disturbing details. He believes the missing information may relate to top-secret mind control projects which are still taking place. This document here says, "We fully understand that the ultimate objective of redacted, is to develop an easily administered drug which will cause the victim to respond to questions and then come out of the effects of the drug without remembering anything about what he has done. We would like to request, however, that blank operatives not be delayed until such a miracle drug is perfected. It is enough that the victim may not entirely be sure what he said, even though he knows he was talking loosely, or even that he remain aware of having made the answers he did, provided that he not be certain that he was drugged, but merely think that it was the result of the alcohol. It is not necessary that we be certain that the drug will produce truthful answers, for we are in a position to check this in a great detail by reason of our present redacted operations. Please keep us advised of the progress made in setting upon this request in order that we may be accurately guided in developing our controlled social contacts with likely victims. This is the way a branch of our own government, the CIA, an agency, is discussing citizens of the United States. They do not have our best interests in mind. The possibilities behind the redacted information are honestly endless. We don't know what's underneath this classified material, John said. We've known for many years that MKUltra-related material was destroyed, but if you look at these documents, you realize that there was a lot going on outside of MKUltra, still drug, mind control, and manipulation related. You begin to realize that MKUltra may ultimately just be the tip of the iceberg. If we know X, what the heck is redacted under Y? We can't know for sure, but it's certainly scary to think about. They are redacting the information because it's absolutely a threat to national security to tell us. Could that threat be that they are still doing this research to this day? Yes, possibly. It makes sense. We know that the United States government does things that go beyond the law, that go beyond the norm of what has happened. Edward Snowden has proven that phone tapping goes on, which obviously is a little bit different than mind control. But historically, these intelligence agencies have been proven to have been able to get away with a lot that goes against the law. So absolutely, the CIA could be continuing this type of research decades later. When you look at the records, you realize that they were making huge accomplishments with this research. If all this stuff was declassified, with not a whole lot of redactions and just failure after failure, then there's probably a chance that they indeed cancel funding to the program. But when you read these materials, you realize that they were actually making leaps and strides. I'm sure that they are using what they found in the 50s and the 60s and beyond, possibly today. John, who has made over 9,000 Freedom of Information requests and posted over 2 million pages of documents online since 1996, believes the CIA went out of their way to prevent him from obtaining these documents and has letters and written evidence that prove they lied and misled him over the past 20 years. He's now determined to obtain the missing documents. There's been multiple times that they just kept giving me bad information, and a lot of times in writing where they're telling me that one thing that isn't necessarily true, he said. If there were just one instance of a frustrating moment, we can put it down to a mistake, human error. But if they count up everything they've put me through to get these documents, that would be ridiculous. And you can only talk it up to the fact that they were not telling me the truth. There's really no other way around it. But my fight is still going for the missing documents or trying to get the CIA to say where those 1,245 pages went. So that's the end of the article. I will definitely leave the link to this in a comment below. Now let's go ahead and just take a look at the Black Vaults, the CIA MKUltra section of the website. This is great because he's got Google custom search. If you guys want to go through here, searching for keywords, if you have heard about a particular project or any information about this, come in here and check it out. And leave me comments in the section below so that we can look into this together. But from Wikipedia, Project MKUltra, sometimes referred to as the CIA's mind control program, was the code name given to an illegal program of experiments on human subjects designed and undertaken by the United States Central Intelligence Agency. Experiments on humans were intended to identify and develop drugs, alcohol, stick and poke tattoos, and procedures to be used in interrogations and torture in order to weaken the individual to force confessions through mind control. And believe me, it goes far beyond just what they're saying here. I'm sure that there are all types of things that have been coming out into the mainstream recently that you guys can think about that this is applicable to. I've heard a lot about this being used in the entertainment industry, these techniques being used in the entertainment industry. There's a lot of overlap between the CIA and other branches of government. This is the very definition of the deep state. If you can imagine, if they were getting close to being able to do this in the 50s, then why, of course, would they not have just brought it to its logical conclusion to perfect it and then carry it on into years in the future so that they can have total, complete domination and control over every aspect of society? This is what the CIA does. They are supposed to be operating outside of the United States. They're not supposed to be operating in the United States. But we know about Project Mockingbird, okay? Their top secret project to develop agents working inside every level of the media and entertainment industry, okay? We know about the fact that they are trying to control people's minds, all right? So what are they going to use that for? Not just for interrogation techniques. If they can control a person's mind, they can make them do whatever they want. And I would submit that this is exactly what they did with many of the patsies out there that were used to assassinate some of our beloved figures, like John F. Kennedy. Who I don't believe that Lee Harvey Oswald was alone in the plot to kill Kennedy. I believe that he must have played some part. I've read too much to say that he wasn't involved in the strata somehow. But I don't think he killed JFK. John F. Kennedy's brother, Robert F. Kennedy. His assassin, Sirhan Sirhan, there was evidence to suggest that he was part of a CIA mind control plot, or at least a mind control plot of some effect, because there was other people involved. There was a woman in the polka dot dress. Sirhan Sirhan went into a trance. Once he saw her, he doesn't remember anything else. I also just saw an interview with a former FBI official who said that there were more bullet holes in the wall than there were bullets in the chamber of Sirhan Sirhan's gun. So basically, this is something that can be used for the most nefarious purposes that you can possibly imagine. And when you've got complete and absolute power, you're off the books, and you have zero accountability, and they are essentially asking you to do whatever you can to develop this stuff. That's a recipe for disaster. Here is an article on Sirhan Sirhan and the mind control that was used to ensnare him in this plot to assassinate RFK. This is from masslive.com. And not long ago, there was a parole hearing for Sirhan Sirhan, the gentleman right here on screen. Convicted assassin Sirhan Sirhan was manipulated by a seductive girl in a mind control plot to shoot Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and his bullets did not kill the presidential candidate, lawyers for Sirhan said in new legal papers. The documents filed this week in federal court and obtained by the Associated Press detail extensive interviews with Sirhan during the past 3 years, some done while he was under hypnosis. The papers point to a mysterious girl in a polka dot dress as the controller who led Sirhan to fire a gun in the pantry of the Ambassador Hotel. But the documents suggest a second person shot and killed Kennedy while Sirhan was a diversion. For the first time, Sirhan said under hypnosis that on a cue from the girl, he went into range mode, believing he was at a firing range and seeing circles with targets in front of his eyes. I thought that I was at the range more than I was actually shooting at any person, let alone Bobby Kennedy, Sirhan was quoted as saying during interviews with Daniel Brown, a Harvard University professor and expert in trauma memory and hypnosis. He interviewed Sirhan for 60 hours with and without hypnosis, according to the legal brief. Sandy Gibbons, a spokeswoman for the Los Angeles County District Attorney, said prosecutors were unaware of the legal filing and could not comment. The story of the girl has been a lingering theme in accounts of the events just after midnight on June 5, 1968, when Kennedy was gunned down in the hotel pantry after claiming victory in the California Democratic presidential primary. Witnesses talked of seeing such a female running from the hotel shouting, "We shot Kennedy," but she was never identified, and amid the chaos of the scene, descriptions were conflicting. Through the years, Sirhan has claimed no memory of shooting Kennedy and said in the recent interviews that his presence at the hotel was an accident, not a planned destination. Under hypnosis, he remembered meeting the girl that night and becoming smitten with her. He said she led him to the pantry. "I am trying to figure out how to hit on her. That's all I can think about," he says in one interview cited in the documents. "I was fascinated with her looks. She never said much. It was very erotic. I was consumed by her. She was a seductress with an unspoken availability." Brown was hired by Sirhan's lawyer, William F. Pepper. Pepper's associate attorney, Lori Dusick, attended the interviews, and Brown said in the documents they both took verbatim notes because prison officials would not let them tape record nearly all the sessions. Sirhan maintained in the hypnotic interviews that the mystery girl touched him or pinched him on the shoulder just before he fired, then spun around him to see people coming through the pantry door. "Then I was on the target range, a flashback to the shooting range. I didn't know that I had a gun," Sirhan said. Under what Brown called the condition of hypnotic free recall, he said Sirhan remembered seeing the flash of a second gun at the time of the assassination. Without hypnosis, he said, Sirhan could not remember that shot. Pepper, a New York lawyer with an international practice, previously tried to prove that James Earl Ray was not the assassin of Martin Luther King Jr. The lawyer said he is convinced that Sirhan was a victim of a mind control project such as those used by the CIA in the 1960s. He is seeking an evidentiary hearing to exonerate Sirhan in Kennedy's killing. Dusick said in an interview that Sirhan was hypnotized for perhaps 30% of the interviews, most of which had to be done through a glass partition with Brown talking to him on a phone. Only when Sirhan was moved from the state prison at Corcoran to his current location at Pleasant Valley State Prison in Coalinga were they allowed face-to-face visits, she said, and a few of those were recorded. Other portions of the motion allege suppression of ballistics evidence and the autopsy report and claim ineffective assistance of counsel. It contends previous lawyers for Sirhan accepted from the start that he was the lone shooter, settled on a defense of diminished capacity, and did not seek other avenues of defense. During the trial, Sirhan tried to confess to killing Kennedy with 20 years of malice aforethought, but the judge rejected the blurted statement. A large portion of the new documents seek to prove the bullets that hit Kennedy came from a different direction than the spot where Sirhan was standing. The papers do not name any other possible shooter. Sirhan was denied parole in March by a panel that said he had not shown sufficient remorse for the killing. And lastly, for anyone who has reservations about this story, reservations about the fact about whether or not the CIA would be willing to create an assassin so that they could have someone assassinated for them, I bring you to a news article from the Washington Star from January 7th, 1979, which is hosted on the CIA's very own website, cia.gov. It's entitled CIA Mind Control Project Included Assassin Making. The CIA once developed a secret mind control plan to induce an unwitting foreign official to assassinate one of his country's leaders, or if necessary, an American official abroad, newly released documents show. The plan was part of Operation Artichoke, the intelligence agency's 23-year program of experimenting with exotic poisons and drugs for use in the mind and behavior control. The 3-page, 25-year-old memorandum detailing the assassination plan was obtained by a citizens group sponsored by the Church of Scientology under a Freedom of Information suit. The church has been feuding for years with the FBI, the Internal Revenue Service, and a number of other federal agencies over its tax-exempt status. Recent congressional investigations have found that the CIA plotted the assassination of Cuban leader Fidel Castro and some other foreign leaders. The CIA says none of the plans was carried out, and it called the mind control plans purely hypothetical. The newly released censored memo shows the Artichoke team visited blank during period 8 January to 15 January 1954. The purpose of the visit was to give an evaluation of a hypothetical problem, namely, can an individual of blank descent be made to perform an act of attempted assassination involuntarily under the influence of artichoke? Essential elements of the problem were outlined in the memo. It was proposed that an individual of blank descent, approximately 35 years old, well-educated, proficient in English, and well-established socially and politically in the blank government, be induced under artichoke to perform an act involuntarily of attempted assassination against a prominent blank politician, or, if necessary, against an American official. A handwritten footnote indicates the plan was simulated only. Because of the subject is a heavy drinker, it continued, it was proposed that the individual could be surreptitiously drugged through the medium of an alcoholic cocktail at a social party. Artichoke applied, and the subject induced to perform the act of attempted assassination at some later date. After the act of attempted assassination was performed, it was assumed the subject would be taken into custody by the blank government and thereby disposed of. So, what do you guys think about this? Do you think this kind of stuff is still going on? Does it make you look at events that have happened throughout the history of the United States appear differently to you now? Can you see where this has been used in the past? I'm very interested to hear what you think. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Please like, share, and subscribe if you have not done so already. My analytics show me that just a little bit over half the people who are watching my videos do not subscribe. I understand. Maybe you don't want to get inundated with a whole bunch of channels, and then it makes it harder for you to find what you really want to watch. But if you subscribed, I'd really appreciate it. So thank you so much again for tuning in to Red Pill 78, the Corruption Detector. I hope everyone has a great evening. Good night, and God bless.